Good afternoon, Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. So we are here today with some of the candidates ahead of the Nottinghamshire County Council elections, which are due to take place next Thursday on May the 6th. So we're just here today to do a hustings, so to speak to some of the candidates from some of the main political parties about what matters affect Nottinghamshire and some of the questions from yourselves as well if we get time at the end. So all we're going to do to start off with is introduce some of the candidates today, and we will start with Jason.
Hi Joe, thank you. So I'm Jason Zadrozny. I'm the leader of the Ashfield Independent Group on Nottinghamshire County Council. We currently have 10% of the councillors there, and I'm here today to try and persuade as many people as possible to vote independent in these local elections. I think it's really vital that residents realise it's not just the big parties' turn to take a go again. We've seen that flip-flopping between the big parties for the last couple of years, and I don't think it's worked. Politics is broken, and politics as a whole shouldn't have a place in our local councils. And I think in places like Ashfield and Mansfield, where independents have run the councils, we've shown what a massive difference we can make by doing things differently, looking at the facts of the matter, using common sense, getting rid of all the mudslinging and that sort of thing, and getting on with the job. And I think that's what people want now. The county council is in a mess. It's been in a mess for the last 4 years, and I'm afraid with national government cuts and sadly incompetence locally, that's meant that this is a really, really important election for Nottinghamshire. And if we don't elect some change at the county council, then nothing will change. We'll still have broken roads, we'll still have a broken adult social care system, we'll still not be investing in our schools and our parks and everything else that really matters. And I hope residents today will have the chance to see what a difference I think I can bring and the independents can bring to Nottinghamshire County Council.
Cheers, Jason. That's great. And now we will move on to Sam Smith from the Conservative Party.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, I'm Sam Smith. I'm currently a borough councillor in Gedling and chairman of the Conservative Party in Nottinghamshire. I'm standing for election onto Nottinghamshire County Council in Newark, but I'm here today to persuade listeners and viewers to vote Conservative in this election. We've been in control of Nottinghamshire County Council since 2017, and we've rolled out a fantastic programme of policies there. I'm here to also introduce some of the policies that we're standing for across the county, and to remind listeners and viewers that a vote for any other party in this election will result in a Labour-controlled Nottinghamshire County Council. And we've seen what an absolute nightmare that has been in the city, where the debt is skyrocketed and services are being cut. So we need to vote Conservative so services continue to be delivered to Nottinghamshire residents at a good standard. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sam. So next up, we have Julie Tasker from the Freedom Alliance. Hi, Julie.
Hello, hopefully you can hear me okay. Yes, I only stepped forward 5 weeks ago, literally, to be a candidate. And it's really because I do care about people and I'm genuine in this. And I really feel that as political and government, we need to be of service for the people, not try and overly control them, minimise legislation, minimise paperwork, and really work together as politicians and independents or whatever party we're from. We need to really, how can we work together rather than oppose people? And we're not here to be in opposition. We're here to find out what local people really need. And everybody needs something different, even within each local community. So we need to please work together. And that's me. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Julie. So next up, we have Lisa from the Heritage Party. Hi there, Lisa, you all right?
Let me press my little button. Hi, this is quite new to me, and I actually found myself agreeing. So I'm Lisa Precious, and I'm representing the Heritage Party. And you may have heard of David Curtin in some of the alternative media. And he's in the London Mayor Assembly and running for London Mayor currently. And like Jason and Julie said, I think we've got to we need change. People are tired, and I'm a concerned citizen right now. I'm proud to say I'm not a politician. I'm tired of the tittle-tattle, childish politics of old, where we're shaming and smearing other people, and they need to be heard right now. I think we've had a year of pandemic of fear on our people, and now we have a different pandemic, a mental health one to deal with going forward. So we stand for free speech and liberty. We are smeared as all sorts of things, but actually, if you look at our manifesto, we stand for very beautiful Christian traditional family values, something to celebrate, I feel. And like I say, I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd sort of be sat here today, but I've become very concerned, and I really want to work with like-minded people. And instead of getting into this tittle-tattle, how can we work together? How can we work together and move forwards and get society thriving and out of this fear mindset that we currently have? So it's nice to hear that. It's refreshing.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Very much. So now we will move on to Alan Rhodes for the Labour Party. Thanks, Alan.
Hello, Joe. Hi, everybody, and thank you for the post for hosting this hustings event. I represent the Labour Party. We are the main opposition party at the county council, and we are offering hope for the future and change for the better. The Conservatives have run the county council for 8 of the past 12 years, and frankly, they've let people in Nottinghamshire down, and we believe that they deserve better than that. So Labour will offer a programme that protects our precious environment, that cares for all our residents, that strengthens our local communities, that rebuilds our local economy and supports families, children and young people right across Nottinghamshire. It's been very tough for people in this past 12 months because of the pandemic, but actually the problems in Nottinghamshire started before the pandemic. We were in the 11th year of Conservative austerity, and that's created huge issues for public services in our county, and we will be fighting for a better deal for Nottinghamshire, and we will be fighting for a better county and a better place to live, grow up in, work in, do business in, and I do hope that people will support us on the 6th of May.
Thanks very much, Alan. Much appreciated. So next up, we have Steve Carr for the Liberal Democrats. Thanks, Steve.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Steve Carr. I'm currently a Liberal Democrat County Council on Nottinghamshire, and I'm also the Deputy Leader of Broxtowe Borough Council as well. I think the next few weeks are going to be very interesting at Nottinghamshire County Council. I am predicting that there will be a no overall control situation on the council, and that's when the Liberal Democrats and the Ashfield Independents will come to their fore. And it will be the best outcome possible if neither of the two main parties have outright control, either one or the other, so that more people can be listened to than just their voter base. And that's why the Liberal Democrats will be taking it very, very seriously over the next few weeks and to see what happens in the election and the outcome. Lib Dems, of course, have always had a reputation for being very proactive and active councillors who are very popular in their area once they get elected. And that does make a difference to people. And we want to bring that difference back to Nottinghamshire County Council. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Steve. And finally, we have Craig Newman for Reform UK. Hi there, Craig.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. So my name's Craig. I am the spokesman for Reform UK, Nottinghamshire. Reform UK has no manifesto. We just have a contract with the constituency where we have no whip, which allows us as councillors to listen to the needs of the people and do what is right by the people, not what the party dictates. We want to decentralise and give back power to the people who hold us accountable, We want a common sense approach to council spending by cutting the wasteful spending and putting it to better use. We want to save our high streets with free parking, business rate cuts, targeted investments. Lastly, our candidates live in the heart of the districts they are campaigning for, which I feel it eases the minds of the constituents, as our candidates are passionate about the area that they live in and campaigning for.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Craig. So for those just joining us just now, we're currently about 11 minutes into our hustings for the Nottinghamshire County Council elections this year. So the elections are taking place next Thursday on the 6th of May. 66 seats will be up for grabs on the day. And obviously, at present, there's a current coalition of Conservative and the Independents in the north. So it'll be an interesting election, see what happens. And now we will go on to some of the questions for our candidates. So we'll start with the questions that we have provided first off. And if we have time at the end, we will then go on to some of the more important reader questions, as I said, if we have time. So the candidates will have little time to answer here. So hopefully they've got everything in order today. So we'll have about 1 minute per candidate before we move on. And anyone that goes over will have to be muted, unfortunately. So we will start off with Jason. And the first question is, what are the main issues across Nottinghamshire? Thanks, Jason.
Well, thanks, Joe. I mean, there's so many, and we've already heard about things that are really important. But to local residents, I think number one is that this county council election is a referendum on roads and pavements. I mean, potholes quite literally fill my mailbag the most. People are fed up that if we can't get the bread and butter stuff right, like not breaking your car every time you go down the high street, the county council can't be trusted on anything else. The things that are less sexy but vitally important that are also needing fixing: adult social care, children's services and schools education. They really need sorting out, and they've been left on the back burner for the last year. But crucially, and this is the most important thing, we've just come out of a year of absolute pain. And this is now the time that this council needs to put its £500 million resources each year behind a real economic recovery, helping the town centres, helping jobs and helping people get back on their feet after that year of pain. And that will be our absolute priority if we're part of an administration going forward.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jason. Thanks very much. So next up, Sam, what are the main issues across Nottinghamshire for you and the Conservative Party?
Thanks, Joe. Well, the Conservative Party have carried out tens of thousands of surveys asking that exact question to the residents of Nottinghamshire. So we listening to their priorities, and that's formed our manifesto going out. So residents listening to this who's received our literature will know what I'm about to say. So fixing potholes, Jason's absolutely right. Biggest thing on everyone's agenda, and sorting out our roads and pavements. But we've had a tough year and residents want to see Nottinghamshire recover from COVID, but they also want continued improvement in our schools, our local environment protected, and investment in our communities, supporting those businesses that have had a difficult time and investing in adult social care so we can look after those that need it. They also want good quality council services whilst keeping council tax as low as possible. And that's, the Conservatives have a good track record on delivering on those, and we have plans to continue to deliver on them if successful on May the 6th.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Sam. We're all sticking to the time limit here, which is brilliant. So next up, Julie, what are the main issues across Nottinghamshire for you and your party? Thank you.
Well, there's a lot that's already been mentioned. I mean, waste disposal, why on earth have we got a French-based company doing our waste disposal? If we, instead of asking, who's doing this and trying to judge and blame people for fly tipping, why don't we ask why? If we made it easy enough, they wouldn't be doing it. Things like youth centres have gone, health and social care. I used to work with the homeless and people with drug and alcohol rehabilitation. And if you actually knew why they were drug and alcohol addicts, then you would understand why they were needing rehabilitation. And instead of judging them, we need to meet them where they are. Unfortunately, the charity's withdrawn, and so people have either committed suicide or they're really struggling. And we've had homeless in Mansfield, which is, as a child, I never knew of homeless people having to live on the streets. Yes, people might come back and say, well, some people choose to, but let's meet them where they are and help them to integrate into the community. And even if they choose to live on the
Thanks,
streets.
Lisa. That's great. Sorry, Julie.
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll have to move on to Lisa now. So, Lisa, what are the main issues across Nottinghamshire? Thanks very much.
Well, aside from the obvious ones, which are always, potholes, etc., roads, I do want to move on to voices that are not being heard as a result of these destructive lockdowns. And we can praise that lockdowns have worked in some respects, but they have destroyed so many people's lives and mental health, and their voices are just not being heard. And I personally only got involved because my sort of world was turned upside down overnight, and I'm generally a pretty strong, mentally, physically fit person, and found myself struggling. So I started to connect with other people that were, we sort of created our own support network, but these people are breaking down on a daily basis. People are feeling frightened, isolated, and in fear about the future. And it's been almost like a psychological attack constantly when you're going out, and people are seeing masks. And for me, we all have our personal boundaries of what we find.
Thanks, Lisa. Sorry,
sorry,
I have to interrupt you there. Apologies.
Yeah, do you?
Right, we'll have to move on to Alan now. Thanks very much. So Alan, how are you doing? What are the main issues?
I mean, all of what's been said I agree with, but for me the main issues are rebuilding the local economy and supporting our communities post-pandemic. What do I mean by that? Well, I think we need to build pride, prosperity and opportunity in every village and every town in Nottinghamshire. We need to put Nottinghamshire first and demand our fair share of funding from central government. We need to fund more apprenticeships so that we've got a more skilled, better skilled workforce, help local businesses to have a sustainable future. They've had a torrid year over the past 12 months. And for goodness sake, spend locally and support the provision of local jobs. We also need to make sure that we protect properties that are prone to flooding, that we improve services to the elderly, people with disabilities, and we work very closely with the police to keep people safe, especially from scammers, which is a massive issue in not just in this county but in the whole country at the moment. And so there's so much that we need to do, but I think those priorities of rebuilding the local economy and supporting our communities as we come out of this pandemic is clearly the most important thing. All of the other things I absolutely agree with. They are very important, but I think it starts with the economy and it starts with supporting our communities.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks very much. Right, we'll move on to Steve for the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you. Firstly, for me, the state of the roads and the pavements. I've been a county councillor for 16 years. Jason came just after me in a by-election, and I have to say that I've never seen them as bad as they are now. I think that's plain to see. And we also need a plan to become carbon neutral as soon as possible. And also, recycling rates in Nottinghamshire are very poor compared to other counties and authorities. We also need investment in youth services, or rather I would say reinvestment in youth services, because that budget is halved since 2013. And also we need to have a look again at the huge cost in home care services. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Steve. And last but not least, we've got Craig. Go for it, Craig. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Hate to sound like a bit of a broken record, but all the issues that have already been mentioned been relayed to myself and my colleagues as well. In Bingham, the closest tip site is 25 miles, which could be a main contributor to certainly in the Bingham area of why people fly tip. People have been wanting phasing in electric public transport, making public transport cheaper, so people are using cars less. There needs to be more so than before. There needs to be much more support hubs for families struggling with the after effects of COVID. More accessibility in parks for like wheelchair users and pram users. That's pretty much it for me.
That's brilliant. Cheers, Craig. It's just on a minute, so that's that worked nicely. So yeah, we've covered all the candidates now. So naturally, we will move on to the next question. So obviously, the pandemic has thrown a spanner in the works, really, in terms of campaigning in a traditional way. So I guess now is your chance, really, to tell our readers why they should vote for your party, vote for yourself, and how your party pledges to tackle these issues that we've mentioned. So we'll start once again with Jason.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, look, I think to tackle your first bit, it is really important that people vote. I mean, all the indications are that turnout's going to be very low because people are a bit of a plague on all your houses. So in certain areas, like if you look at Mansfield a couple of years ago, the mayor of Mansfield won by 2 votes. So in a lower turnout election, really small majorities, really small numbers of votes can make a massive difference. So vote for the person or the group that you think are going to make the biggest difference. And I know in Ashfield that residents can look at our track record of running the district council and see what a difference we've made. So we will bring more of that same common sense and listening to people to the county council. First and foremost, we will change the way funding is allocated to highways. We would invest more in all of those programs that people care about, like adult social care, like youth services, like subsidised public transport. And we think there's a different way of doing things. We could just look at other councils who do them differently and better. The Isle of Wight have done their highways better. We'd look at other, independents run big councils like Cornwall, like Powys, big county councils. And I think we can take inspiration from them to change the way services are done. Because quite frankly, and I said this at the beginning, doing the same thing over and over again will mean no change. And that's just not an option this time. We've got to do things differently.
Thanks very much. Right, we'll move on to Sam now.
Thanks, Joe. Well, we've heard a lot just a minute ago about potholes. Well, when Labour were in control of Nottinghamshire County Council in their last 2 years, they only repaired 60,000. The Conservatives have done 200,000 over in just 24 months. We're pledging record levels of investment into our roads and highways, £24 million. Just recently, we've completed 245 resurfacing programmes, including in Newark, where I'm standing. And we, if elected, will continue with that record investment. We've also spoke about education, which is a priority of residents, and we've invested over £100 million in schools, which is the biggest school building programme the county's ever seen, and we'll continue to do that so people have good places to go for schools. We're also cutting carbon and becoming carbon neutral is a pledge of ours. We're investing over £1 million in infrastructure to allow electric bus fleets throughout Nottinghamshire, and we will invest in greener technologies there, such as LED light bulbs in lampposts, etc. And
sorry, that's all we've got time for, unfortunately, Sam. We'll have to move on. But thanks very much. So next up, we've got Julie. Go for it, Julie. Thanks very much.
Hello, yes. Julie from the Freedom Alliance, and it's no lockdowns and no curfews. And really, we need to meet people where they are. We need to actually engage with our local communities. Our education system, and I am a qualified teacher, we're over-testing and we're not local enough. They're centralised schools. They're more like prisons these days than they should be. So Freedom Alliance have actually got a lot of input on that sort of thing. The Conservative approach of build, 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 and at the moment we're being used in Mansfield as a community belt for Nottingham, for London, and we don't need to be used as a community belt to take our green fields and green spaces away. We need to really preserve, and we know from this lockdown that we need healthy places to visit, easy access from our doorstep within 10 minutes. And we just need to work together, get to really know what people need rather than try to impose on them and just give them academia. This isn't about that.
Thank you. Right, next up we've got Lisa. So the same question, Lisa. How does your party pledge to tackle the issues raised? Thanks very much.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I really oppose is when I hear a party say when they're in control and power. Quite frankly, you know, as an elected official by the people, then you, the people, have the power, and I'm a citizen, and if I'm not doing the job, then you need to be able to have a process to get me out, because I don't want to control anybody. I want you to all be able to take some responsibility for your own lives and livelihoods. So main issues right now are getting small and medium-sized businesses back on the go, because to tell a business they're unessential, quite frankly, I think it was diabolical when this is people's livelihoods, years and years spent growing their businesses only to be told they're unessential. That I found appalling. So we need to really work strongly with local businesses, encourage, you know, the marketplace, get Newark thriving again, which it used to be. It was such a gorgeous little town, and we can do it if we've got the will to do it. So they're my main issues right now, walking back the fear in society, and I'm concerned about the children in school, but that's an we'll
get on to that. Thanks very much. Right, so next up, Alan, same question applies. Thanks very much.
So yeah, I wouldn't have said anything about potholes if I was a Conservative, but having said that, I'm a big believer in localism, and I do believe that we should be building on the brilliant community response during the pandemic and provide routes from volunteering into paid jobs. We should strengthen our support to communities to ensure that we're better connected and listening to them. It's easy for the county council to become a rather distant body in some communities, particularly where I live 40 miles away from County Hall. We should be devolving funding to local areas in local communities, giving local people more say in decision making that affect their daily lives. And we should be working with our borough and district council colleagues and local businesses to revitalise our town centres and making them safer and more attractive places to go. There's an awful lot we can say about the economy and rebuilding the economy, and some of that's already been touched upon. But you know, it is key to all of this. We've had at times stood still in this past 12 months for a lot of businesses and for a lot of community groups.
Sorry,
and
gonna have to jump in now.
Rebuilding that. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks very much. Right, so next up, Steve.
Yes, thank you. Being very direct as to the things I've already brought up in question one. First of all, what needs to happen is a review of the rules that mean that Broxtowe, Ashfield and Mansfield get more than £1 million less than other districts to spend on road repairs. Secondly, declare a climate emergency backed by a robust plan of action. That's been done at Broxtowe Borough Council, where the Liberal Democrats are in joint control of the council. And we need again to look at our recycling contract, because it's not fit for purpose. It's daft that you can't recycle some things in Notts and then go over the board into Leicestershire and you can recycle them. I will bring back, or the Lib Dems would bring back, mobile youth clubs that were taken away from us in 2014. And this was a huge mistake, which led to considerable lowered opportunities to help young people, and also reverse the rise in home help charges that have caused some vulnerable people to cancel their care. If I had to single out the biggest mistake the last administration made, that would be the biggest single mistake. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. That's brilliant. Right, Craig, 60 seconds. Thanks very much.
I was already. Yeah, so I would like to see more police and civil enforcement to tackle antisocial behaviour and fly tipping more so. More CCTV in the hotspots that tend to be problematic for the businesses that are struggling to combat the antisocial behaviour. The use of brown land for solar farms and tip space rather than building more house projects, because obviously the more houses that there are in the developed area, the more jobs are needed within the area, and you just can't keep up with that demand, supply and demand, when it comes to jobs. And then obviously more youth activities to help out with the youth.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah,
Sorry, we're going to have to jump in there. That's
no,
great.
that's pretty
Thanks
much
very
it.
much. Right, so thanks very much, guys. That's that covered. So I guess you've now got time to build upon that as such. So the next question is, why are you standing for election in Nottinghamshire, and what further can your party offer the people? Thanks very much. Jason, first off.
Thanks, Joe. That's the dead easy one for me, because I've only ever stood because I care. We've talked about having local candidates who want to do stuff. I've never, ever cared about being called councillor or having that title. I just want to do some stuff. So, running the council or being part of that, I've sat on that county council for 14 years and never had an input while I've watched terrible decisions made, some good decisions made. But and I think my party has shown, the Ashfield Independents have shown, that we've got a real collection of diverse people who represent their own piece of the jigsaw, their own towns and villages, who just really give a toss about making it better than when they found it, and that's all we're about, And I guess most people in this debate think the same thing. We just have different ideas about how we get there. But I'm passionate about Ashfield. I've always felt Ashfield's been let down. It's the biggest district in the county by population and by housing, and it's never got its fair share. And all I want to do is keep putting my head above the parapet and saying, what about Hucknall? What about Kirkby and Sutton and Selsdon? We deserve our fair share. We need better services and we need better provisions. And that's why I'm here, because I want to make a difference.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you. Right, Sam, we'll move on to yourself next. So why are you standing for election, and what can your party offer?
I'm standing for election to help improve our communities and improve the services that we all rely on from the county council. Like the viewers at home, I drive on the county's roads and I enjoy our green spaces. I have nephews and nieces in schools across the county, and I shop on our high streets. I want to see all that improved. And as I set out earlier, the Conservative manifesto, which all our candidates are standing on, will go and invest in those things and work to improve them for the residents of the county. So that's why I'm standing in this election.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Sam. Right, next up, Julie.
Yeah, well, I only stepped up 5 weeks ago, and it was really because I'm passionate about engaging with people, getting rid of our political system as it is now, and really being of service to the people. I've worked in lots of different roles. I've set up a local Facebook group that's actually saved the local park from being built on and from being closed. And that's the sort of thing we need to do. But we've got to really engage with people. We are there to be of service to people, not to impose on them. We need to change politics, we need to change councils, we need to change all this electoral boundary stuff. It's so confusing for everyone. And these days it seems that politicians are degree people that don't actually understand life properly. They've done a degree and they think that's it. And then they go and move to an area quite often and they don't even know the area properly. We need to know our people properly, and every person is different, and that is complicated. And we need to accept that complication, but we need to stop judging and start really engaging with people, meet them where they are so that we can really help them and find out what they need.
Thanks,
so I'm hearing them about up.
Thanks very much. Brilliant. So, Lisa, why are you standing for election? What can your party offer?
Well, I mean, the Heritage Party is it's a great party. We're standing in the elections to provide you with an alternative to the old parties that I really feel are no longer serving the people. Over the years, we're such a great nation and we've got so much to be proud of. And over the years, we're just eroding it and we're becoming more and more divided. And I'm noticing that the media has been using this awful divisive terminology towards anybody that doesn't agree with the narrative. And we've got this sort of cancelling culture. And, you know, I was there at the Freedom Rally on Saturday, and I'm absolutely amazed that you can't even say the word these days, didn't cover it. But these are like near on 1 million people on the streets that need to be heard, else they wouldn't take their time and pay their money to get on the streets. So, I mean, for me personally, my son had a vaccine injury some years ago, and he was 17 to the DPT, and it was quite a severe injury. And for that, I am labelled and smeared, and it's not right. It's
Sorry,
really
Lisa.
not right.
Thanks very much. I'll have to interrupt once again. Apologies. Righto, so we'll move on to Alan. Thanks very much.
Thanks. I mean, I first got elected as a district councillor in my area in 1986. I've served consistently ever since as a county councillor since 2005. I've never lost an election in my area, touch wood. I stood for exactly the same reason as anybody else, regardless of political persuasion or non-political persuasion stands, because they want to change things. That they want the best for their area, and they want the best for the people of their area. I've got a fantastic, diverse community. We've got beautiful countryside. We've got huge potential for investment and development, and I want to be a part of supporting all of those things: the community, the environment, the economy. And I think that as a councillor, that's the best way that I can do it. Local government's incredibly important. I believe it's more important in many ways than national government, because they can change the way that people live, and they can change people's lives on a daily basis. This is where the decisions that affect people's lives on a daily basis are made. And it's really important that we get the right people in local government. And I'm not making a party political point when I say that. It's important that we get people into local government who care, as Jason said right at the beginning. If you care about your community, then you should be standing for council, and you can make a difference.
Thanks very much, Alan. Right, Steve, your turn. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'm just keeping my eye on my cat. She might make an appearance any moment. Sorry about that. Well, I first stood as a councillor because I wanted to represent the community where I live, my neighbours, if you like, and that's still the case today. The Liberal Democrats believe in localism, working for and with residents and not dictating what's best for them. I have to say, though, that doesn't transcend to lockdowns and vaccines. Thank you. We're also prepared to work with others to get the best outcomes for communities. If you want evidence of that, just take a look at Broxtowe Borough Council, where we work together with other parties and independents very successfully. I think that's absolutely essential. And as I said earlier, I think that's going to be essential after the 6th of May in Nottinghamshire. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve. And finally, Craig. Thanks very much.
Well, for me, I feel like there are voices just not being heard at the moment. We've got issues where the flow surf in my local area, there are people looking into building on it, even though there's so much football history tied to the land to it. It just doesn't seem fair for my constituency that I'm personally standing for. It just feels like the Conservatives have become very complacent, and the opposition just aren't loud enough. So I want to be that person who keeps the status quo in check, basically. And just be that voice to the unheard until everyone feels heard, basically.
Thanks, Craig. That's great. Righto, thanks very much, guys. Thanks for your answers. So I guess building on what's just been said, really, the next question is in terms of voter turnout in local elections in particular. So I was up in Arnold recently, in Front Street, and a lot of people, you know, there was a huge disconnect with the local councillors. Many didn't know who they were, who represented the ward they lived on. Many said they weren't going to vote in the elections. So I guess now is your chance to, you know, explain why it's important, what you do, and, you know, how your party aims to tackle this disconnect and build trust. So we'll start with Jason. Thanks very much.
Hi, Joe. Thanks. Well, I think I touched on this before, that turnout's going to be low. And I think actually in low turnout elections, every vote matters, because I said Mansfield, the mayor won by 2. In Ashfield, we've had councillors win or lose by 6 votes. So every vote really matters. And we're going into an election where 70% of people probably won't vote, and that's a really damning indictment, I think, on the county council. And that's because it's been so remote from people. Your local borough or district council, you know what they do, they're in contact, you can pop round the corner. That's one of the reasons I've been so opposed to this massive super council that the Tories wanted to make for Nottinghamshire, that would have been bigger than Cyprus. Absolutely bonkers. If that is not another way of just making yourself so remote from the people you represent, I don't know what is. My politics has always been, as I know Steve's has, is that decisions should be made as close to the people they affect as possible, and that's when people engage. And I think that's what we bring now. As Stephen and others have said, we hope that there is no overall control in this council, so that council's much more conversational. It has to get rid of the tit for tat mudslinging and talk to each other about stuff, and that's when residents will re-engage, because they'll see that every vote matters and that they can elect the best person for their ward rather than a big party or who will win the council. They'll represent who they will feel will speak up best for them. And I hope people go to the polls thinking that. Thank you.
Righto, we'll move on to Sam. So, Sam, how is your party and yourself going to bridge that disconnect? Thanks very much.
Voting absolutely does matter, and in this election particularly, the people you elect are going to be responsible for setting council tax across the county and then setting how that's going to be spent. The Conservatives are engaging with the electorate, and we will work to increase turnout by delivering on their priorities. Far too often we hear politicians telling the people what's important. Well, Conservatives across Nottinghamshire aren't doing that. As I said at the start, we're going out, and we have been going out, surveying the residents, listening to your priorities and making them ours and setting them into our manifesto. We've listened to that feedback. As I've said, your priorities are ours. It's in our manifesto that's coming through your doors, and we will deliver on them. A vote for the Conservatives on the 6th of May is a vote for the people's priorities across Nottinghamshire, and I'm afraid a vote for any other party will risk the services that we all rely on. And we've seen that in the city. So that's how we're going to do it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam. Brilliant. Righto, Julie, thanks very much.
Right, rather than focusing on it being a low turnout, let's focus on engaging people so that they really understand about it all. If people realise that even in 1910, only 60% of men could vote, and not only did the women vote come in, but working men and people that didn't own property were starting to be allowed to actually vote. So once they realised that, and that's only 100 years ago, not much more than 100 years ago, and it's really, if people feel they can make a difference, then they'll bother to engage. And we need to get out there. We need to minimise all this pomp and ceremony. Houses of Parliament could actually be a tourist attraction. Let's get a round table approach to politics where we actually meet each other. We're there for people to be of service to them. Every person has a different need, even if they've got the same label on them as where they live or whatever. Everybody has a different experience of life, and we need to genuinely meet them so that they feel they can voice. There are so many people who are just so fed up with hearing about all the political side of things, and that is not engaging people. If you want to engage people, get to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Righto. Lisa, your turn. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you. I mean, I would say to anybody, and I've heard some great things from some of you others today, is just when you're voting for someone, look at what their own personal morals and values are. And, like you say, we're here to serve the people. It's not the other way around. I'm so tired of this politics and not owning their mistakes and just fudging around it and leaving devastation behind, but pretending you've done a good job. It's time for change. It really is. And like I say, there needs to be some sort of something in place where if we're not serving you, you need to be able to get us out. So when I'm hearing other politicians say, oh, don't listen to them, listen to us. If we get into power, well, I want to hear what you've all got to say. We've got to think about where we're going now. And I think it's out with the old and in with the new. I really do. And I hope we've said enough today that people hear that message amongst quite a few of us, actually. And it really is about serving the people now going forwards and hearing the voices that aren't getting heard.
Lisa.
Thanks
you very much. Brilliant. Alan, same question. So thank you very much.
Yes, I mean, it is all our responsibility to engage the electorate and encourage people to use their vote. It's hard fought for, and it's massively important. But, you know, day after day and year after year, those of us in public office and those of us that are interested in politics and interested in what the community is doing should be out there talking to local people, communicating with local people, holding street stalls, holding street surgeries, you know, talking to people about matters that concern them. And actually, this is one area that I do agree with Sam on. It's all about making their issues your issues. And it's not about our priorities. It's not about the things that interest us and excite us. It's about the community and what they want. That we're here to serve. Somebody said that earlier. We're here to serve. We're servants of the community. And the final thing on that is to communicate. Communicate with your constituents. Tell them what you're doing, why you're doing it. Get their ideas as well, and get their opinions to make sure that you're doing the right thing by your constituents and by your community. It's all about communication, but in the end, we're public servants and servants of our community. We should remember that.
Righto. Steve, up next. I'm quite appalled I haven't seen your cat make an appearance yet.
Oh no, she's gone now. She seems a bit more interesting than a mouse, I think, probably. Yeah, well, turnout's far more patchy than people make out. You know, in the last county elections, you know, in some places it was as nearly as high as 50%. In other areas, it was well into the low 20s. And yeah, demographics plays a part, but you know, a lot of it's to do with how your councillors engage with you. And areas with high turnout, so usually ones where regular engagement with the residents that you represent takes place regularly. The Lib Dems have a reputation of being very active and approachable. And in fact, and I'm going to boast about this, my division 4 years ago had the second highest turnout in the whole of the county. And I'm very, very proud of that. But as Alan said, we're there to serve the whole of the county, and sometimes I think some of us actually do forget that, and you know, I think we need to be reminded from now, you know, from time to time. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. That's great. Steve, I think there's a bit of interference on your connection. I'm not sure if what's going on. A couple of sound problems.
Okay.
But yeah, apologies for that. And last but not least, Craig. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Conservatives seem to be very self-serving and don't seem to want to line their pockets. Labour seems to be having a bit of an identity crisis. I'm willing just to listen to the needs of the people, regardless of what side of the political compass they fall on. I can't be bought, and I will fight for all the voices being heard. We've had a downgrade in Newark of hospital down to minor incident, and we've actually lost lives because no one could be treated for the more severe incidences, and it just doesn't seem like that sort of thing should be happening. A town as big as Newark needs an A&E, not a minor incident. But yeah, and so I want to, like I said, I want to be that voice that makes sure everyone's are heard. Every voice is heard.
Great. Thanks very much. Righto, so we've got about 10 minutes left. So this is lined up quite perfectly. So we're on the final question now, and perhaps one of the most important to many of our readers, really. So for the last year or more, we've been, you know, it's going through this coronavirus pandemic. So And a lot of the town centres across the county and high streets and, you know, smaller villages have been damaged by this pandemic. Jobs have been lost as a result of the pandemic. So I guess we're going to ask you all how your party can help this pandemic recovery. So we'll start with Jason. Thanks very much.
Thanks. I think this is the question of our time. You know, the county council's had a new COVID committee, which I think needs to go now, and that effort needs to be put into an economic regeneration committee about how we get jobs and businesses and our town centres back on track. We need to put our entire focus behind that. And as I said, the county council spends £500 million a year, and one of the first things it should do is dig a moat around Nottinghamshire and say we're spending that money as locally as humanly possible to reinvest it to support as many local businesses and suppliers and chains as we can. A few years ago, the county council effectively did away with their economic regeneration teams and left that entirely to district and boroughs. And I think they need to re-engage that partnership with them all as well. So it's not just the county or not just the districts, but we actively work together to say we want to bring people back into town centres. We want to repurpose them in some ways, actually, so that they have a leisure or a food offer and things like that that help small and medium-sized businesses and draw an attraction. And one of the things that's really always frustrated me over the last 4 years is that the leader of the county council, the Tory leader, has always said it's not her job to lobby government about things. And I think it's absolutely the job of the county council to say this thing's not working for us here. For instance, we've all been given this Get Back fund to get people back into town centres. It's entirely a revenue fund. So we can't buy a piece of art that might attract somebody in, or we can't do permanent things that would bring people back to town centres. A county council where I have a strong voice in it will be lobbying government to make changes so that we can tinker things to a Nottinghamshire change to make them work for us locally as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Righto, so we'll go on to Sam. So how can your party help with the pandemic recovery locally? Thanks.
Look, it's been a very difficult year for our businesses due to lockdowns, and throughout that, the government have supported businesses with grants and protected jobs through the furlough system, which I think has been brilliant. And the government have introduced an unprecedented package of support grants to save jobs during the pandemic, and it's been fantastic to see businesses and shops in Newark and across the county reopening, and that's thanks to the amazing vaccination rollout that's allowed that to happen. And I've been visiting businesses to encourage them to apply for those grants. We've recently launched through government the Welcome Back Fund, which is helping high streets open safely post-pandemic. But also going forward, the county council need to work with the government to access the £4 billion levelling up fund that the Conservative government's going to deliver. And the county council can put bids into that, particularly around transport and regeneration. So Conservative councillors are going to be out there listening to residents and shoppers on the high street, finding out what's important to them and feeding that back into the bid team at the county council, so we can really level up and build back better on our high streets post the pandemic.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Sam. And next up, Julie. Thanks very much.
Right. Well, when you think of £40 billion being spent on the track and trace, and self-employed people haven't known from 1 month to the next what grants or anything they might be given, and then as a self-employed person, I've been sent these links, and then you get on it and you don't find out anything else for another month or two, and people have just not been anywhere that they know that where is life going to. And it's been much more about the large corporates, and Freedom Alliance is very much about concentrating on the smaller and medium-sized businesses, bringing the heart back into each of our communities. The Freedom Alliance politicians that put ourselves forwards, we're grassroots people. We're not the people that have been in the mainstream politics that are so blinkered by that system. And we're really after meeting the people where they are. Freedom Alliance are about getting rid of different taxes so that we can really focus and support these smaller businesses and self-employed people, overtaxing large corporations, if anything, who don't really seem to understand the local people. And I know in Mansfield, we've had certain shops come to the town centre only if the council agreed to certain things that really debilitated it for the local people. We used to have a beautiful market, and now it's just nothing what it used to be. Stop CCTV, stop needing to judge people and sort of accuse them of fly tipping and being on drugs.
Sorry,
and
Julie,
alcohol.
I'll have to interrupt you there. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
And Lisa, so the same question. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I'll run out of time, won't I? So I've got to say, I mean, as a business owner, these lockdowns have been incredibly destructive. It's not quite as simple as just paying furlough. Each lockdown destroys a bit more of your business that you've got to then try and somehow build back up again afterwards, if you ever get that opportunity to do that again. The government track and trace system hasn't helped, or is not helping at all. People don't want that. I don't want to go into town and the government have to know when I'm having a cup of coffee. And it's quite obvious it's not worked, and it's like Chinese communism, quite frankly. I would like to see something like the Dutch style continental way of dining out and eating that works very well in the continent. We can help pubs and restaurants that way and get a little bit innovative, invest in, give them tables and chairs, patio heaters and things, encourage local produce more. That would be great. We need the market stalls again, local produce, lower the rents for shops, give them an incentive to get in there. No rent for 3 months or half price for 6 months. Better than to have a business in there than no business in there. So parking, you know, a redeemable parking ticket if you want within a local shop, or just, you know, let's try and find a way where you can just pull up outside your local butchers again without it being a double yellow line, run in and grab your meat. And let's help people instead of putting all these blocks in place. So
Thanks,
yeah,
Lisa.
okay.
Thanks very much. Right, Alan, thanks very much.
Well, if Labour's elected on the 6th of May to run the county council, we'll make economic regeneration a priority. Look, our town centres are on their knees in many cases, and the government, the Conservative government, don't have a clue what to do about that. They put most of it down to market forces. In the past decade, Nottinghamshire has lost 240 shops, 70 pubs and 50 bank branches. That is a serious decline in the high street, and we need a long-term strategy for high street growth. I was with the Shadow Chancellor, Annalisa Dodds, in Arnold yesterday. We were on Arnold Market and around the town centre in Arnold talking to local businesses, and there is no doubt that we need a long-term strategy. Labour has launched a new commission to rebuild Britain's high streets, and we brought on board experts from the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors, as well as others from the unions, local government, social enterprise and cooperative movements. And there needs to be a proper strategy about how our town centres are going to continue as viable options, how they're going to grow, whilst taking into account the fact that many people now, including all of us, I suspect, shop online as well. There has to be a way forward, but it has to be a properly considered way forward. It can't be a mishmash of this and that, which is what we seem to have at the moment. We certainly can't allow our high streets to die.
Thanks,
because of market forces.
I'll interrupt there. Thanks very much. Steve, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you. I first of all, I'd like to point out that in Broxtowe, we've recently saved Beeston Market, which was due to go under because the proprietor of it went out of business. That's now operating again. Last week, Stapleford had a new market introduced. On Saturday, Kimberley will have a new market introduced, and that's because of the Liberal Democrats in Broxtowe. So this notion that we don't do anything to help, that some people are espousing, just isn't true. However, saying that, I shan't be going on about how the Liberal Democrats will help in the pandemic, because I do think that it's actually should be a non-party political issue. Everybody should be working together to ensure that we get back to where we were before. And I've been one of those politicians in the background that gets criticised by people that have been working their socks off to make sure that businesses get as much money as possible in the form of grants. And it's been very, very hard work indeed, but worth it, because businesses have been getting that money, and we need to continue that moving forward to get us back to normal. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Steve. And finally, Craig. Thanks very much.
Hi. The current tax system does not promote growth and fails to help the wealth creators, such as the self-employed, the entrepreneurs, and the small to medium enterprises. Low tax and simpler tax systems means higher growth. At least that's what my party believes as a whole. Abolish business rates for physical shops, lift income tax from 12,500 to 20,000, and just to bring everyone more money into their pockets, basically. This will allow small businesses to flourish. Low earners will see more money in their pockets. Want to look at free parking to help out the high streets, shops, and see more traffic in the town centres. Well, footfall traffic, sorry, not car traffic. And yeah, I think that's the most important thing at the moment is getting people to spending locally again, and put more onus on the physical shops rather than internet shopping.
That's great. Thanks very much, Craig. And so much appreciated. I think hopefully our readers have enjoyed listening to you all, and hopefully a lot of people decide to vote this year. So to our readers, thanks very much for watching. The elections are next Thursday, May the 6th, and we have been reliably informed by Jason that you are allocated a polling station, unlike usual elections where you go to your closest one. So you can refer to our website, Nottinghamshire Live, for the latest information. And thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed watching, and thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you.